Greetings, Patrick here. 8 questions with on a hazy Michigan night. It's actually been rather hazy all week. It's no rain to speak of, but it's not smoke at least, but it has the same sort of haze to it. All right, so here we are for the one and the only show we had this week. So I'm glad that we have this one. We're going to be talking with screenwriter, writer, film director, um, and Jeremiah Kipp, who directed The Moartuary Assistant. We've already talked to the screenwriter, um, uh, uh, Tracy Beebe, and now we're going to be talking um, with Jeremiah. And I don't Gareth from Video Tasties. He pinged me on my I was promoting this. He asked me if I had seen the movie. And I have. I've seen The Moartuary Assistant. I have not reviewed it yet. I'm going to review it after I talk with Jeremiah. I never post reviews until I talk to the guests. It's just better that way. Hey, Dominic, how are you? Glad you're here. Bring your notepad. We're going to get into it with Jeremiah. Probably the one big thing I noticed, besides well, first of all, like I've said, I've taken this up. I've taken up this mantle. Video game movies are the hardest thing to make. I, I always thought anthologies were because of such an unevenness, of it. But after I've seen some video game, movies have come out, and they just absolutely rolled by a lot of the fans. Hello, Lady Valerie. Glad you are here. Glad you're here. If you notice this, that whenever there's a video game adaptation for the screen, nobody wins. I have yet to see anybody embrace a video game 100%, going like, "Oh yeah, this is the bomb right here." I have yet to see that. Everybody has something to say about something, and it is pretty fierce out there too. I mean, so I think anybody that takes up that mantle to write or to direct a video game movie, they got some special skills. They got some, and I'm saying that too because see, I watched some video games movies. I saw Borderlands, which I liked. I saw Werewolves Within, which I really liked. And I saw The Moartuary Assistant, which I really liked. I mean, they were all great to me. I couldn't tell you what they're bitching about. I guess that's sort of like someone like, watching Lord of the Rings and wondering what I was bitching about when I walked out of the theater, going like, where's Tom Bombadil? Let's see. Your next short film is about a vampire in college. That sounds like an interesting short film, for sure. I'm gonna have to come over and take a. You get to send me some of your movies that you made, Dominic. I'm sure you got a few movies underneath your belt now. I probably just haven't caught up with you. So we'll have to get together. You have to show me some of the films you've done. I definitely want to. I mean, I know you're very creative, which is a very good thing in this business. So I guess the big thing I heard today. Of course, we shouldn't be all surprised by this, because we knew this was going to coming. So, Warner and Warner Brothers and Paramount are trying to merge. Larry Ellison from Oracle was trying to. He's trying to, basically squeeze us even further. This is not a good thing. This merger is a horrible thing. This is why we have anti-monopoly laws in place, so this thing doesn't happen. But of course, those laws are in the middle of being dismantled, and so pretty soon we're only going to be getting information. And this was really the big thing about this, is we're only going to get information from only a few certain resources. It's only going to be, you're not going to have a wide choice of news, or you're not going to be able to hear anything from around the world. The merger is a horrible idea. So, and the states have, the states have filed suit against it. They know what it is. It's not a good thing. So they sued Larry Ellison and to stop the Warner Brothers and Paramount merger. Well, that's costing Paramount now. It's cost them basically $7 million a day. Why they wait? Why they wait? Because they initiated the buyout. They wanted to buy it, and part of the rules was, if if you can't close the deal, because everything freezes basically when a merger is announced, everything gets frozen. So whatever as a stockholder, whatever you have stays frozen. It's in everybody's best interest to make this thing happen smoothly and quickly, so nobody loses any money. Stockholders don't feel like they're losing any money and whatnot. Well, because the states have all en masse sued, they have caused this to stop, and now Paramount, being the originator of the takeover, is now being basically has to pay over $7 million every single day. So almost $50 million a week, 196 million dollars basically a month, maybe more than that, because it's every day, not just weekdays. Um, oh, okay, great. I definitely want to see that, Dominic, for sure. I definitely want to see that. Um, so um, yeah, well, now they're going to the legal, now they're in the courts. The court said, well, they wanted to settle it right now. And the court said, no, we're going to do it in March 2027. So think about it, $7 million a day. Think about it. So right now, August, September, October, November. You don't see where I'm going with this. Every day, it's gonna be escalating. Now, I'm not sure if the $7 million has happened. I think it already has started to happen, or it's going to be really soon, real soon. So they're trying to put a power play on the courts in the states by saying that, if you don't play with me and my ball, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Paramount Pictures out of Los Angeles. That's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take it out. Yeah, go ahead and make that run. You're gonna take Warner Brothers too. I can't imagine the logistics of that. Um, yeah, I guess you can move it to Texas, with your buddy Elon. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Have to rebuild with all the have to rebuild everything. Um, yeah, go right ahead. How long do you think that's going to take for you to actually move a major studio like Paramount and Warner Brothers? How long do you think it would take for you to move that, and at what cost? And who exactly is not going to be playing with you? I know you. And see, that's the other part about the monopoly too, is that it not only does it affect us as far as the news goes, but if you're an actor or director or producer or what have you, guess what? Your freedom of expression has just been cut. So you don't have places to pitch anymore. I got a good idea. I can shop it around. You hear that all the time. Like a TV show will get canceled. You'll see a producer say, "Well, we're going to shop it around to see if we can get any interest in it." Those days will be gone. Those days are going. Um, and there's not going to be places to pitch. It's going to be like one pitch, one place. Um, you got Disney, and you got Fox to some extent, not much. You have Peacock, which I'm not really sure how they're doing, because I think they've been hemorrhaging money. They've been hemorrhaging money. They're going to try to spin off their divisions off now. They have not made any money off of Peacock. Um, I mean, yes, you can go to Netflix, but here's the thing. All your pitches that you make once these mergers come into play, guess who's going to be making all the money and guess who's not going to be making all the money? I got a pitch for a show. All right, we'll buy it from you for $50,000, for a finder's fee or whatever. It's not going to be, yeah, we're going to take you on as a showrunner, as a producer, and give you a salary. They don't have to do that anymore. Now they can just go ahead and sit there and say, well, we're the only game in town. You could take it or leave it. And where are you going to go with it? Where are you going to shop that at? This is why the merger is a horrible, horrible idea. Um, and then Larry Ellison threatening to basically he's trying to use blackmail. He's trying to blackmail the courts. He's trying to supersede the courts. He's trying to supersede the states. It's not a good idea. It's not good at all. Media mergers are never any good. They're just not. It's poison, especially when you get somebody like Larry Ellison in play. Poison. But all right. So our guest today is Jeremiah Kipp. He is a fine director and a screenwriter. He is also has made not only has he made The Moartuary Assistant, but he did a movie that for Shudder called Slapface, which instantly elevates him into elite status for us because, as you know, Shudder and IFC are sister companies. They put out basically when you sit there and say, "I put out a movie on Shudder," you're basically saying you put out a movie on IFC as well. That's their sisters, and working for AMC. But what's really impressive about Jeremiah, and I really like about him is especially after this. I read this last week. One of my groups, there was a guy who popped up there and said that short films are useless. He says short films are a waste of time. He said that. Well, I can tell you one thing: that guy hasn't done shit. That's for sure. Um, Short films are, I believe, the blood of filmmaking. I really do. I think it teaches you everything. You go to school for when you do a short film. You learn how to do everything you learn how to do everything short of paying. If you don't have $100,000 to pay every year for tuition at an elite film school, then doing a short film is probably the second best way. You learn everything that you need to learn doing a short film as you would have got at a university. And you do it on your own time and pace, and you learn how to do everything. And the more short films that you do, the more sharper you gain in your craft. I can tell I can tell when a movie has done is really good based on if the director has done short films or not. If I look at a director's resume and I see the movies that he or she lists, they have like 4 or 5. That's okay, but I feel much better when it's like like 8 or 10. Like they keep improving, like they have an idea and they want to. Listen, someone told me I'm a financially irresponsible because I'm making short films. No, you're learning how to. You actually tell you the truth. You're learning to be financially responsible by doing short films. You're learning a fiscal responsibility because when you do your short films, you learn how to do everything. You storyboard, you work with various departments, you hire actors, you go ahead and you learn how to budget. You get a budget before you shoot. Okay, I'm going to make a short film. I need about $10,000. I'm going to go ahead and build that in. I'm going to build that. I'm going to learn how to budget. You learn all that. The ones that sit there and say, "Well, I just learned as I go." Yeah, well, they're still out there. A filmmaker, even today, even today, um, you see actors and you see actors and directors still, and well-known actors too. not just, just not somebody just, we never heard of. If you look at a lot of your favorite actors, you will see they still work short films. You know, in fact, we'll be talking with Jeremiah about this as he walks through the door.
Hello.
There he is. Hi, Jeremiah.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. Wow. I had all these first questions lined up for you. I had all these first questions and so excited and but then I was re-looking at your IMDb, and the one thing that just came to me more than anything else is how many artists you have launched I can't believe, because I look at short films as a launching pad. When you work on a short film, and a lot of those people, they're learning their craft. Oh, did he freeze on us?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I thought maybe I froze there for a second. I was looking at the IMDb short films, and I was thinking how many artists, how many crew members cut their teeth working on one of your short films. Have you thought about that? Have you thought, we call it a coaching tree in football. It's where you have the main football coach, and then you have all these other coaches that branch out, but they all learned from you. Um, you ever given a thought of how many people whose career that you've launched?
Yeah, well, I like that you think about it as a continuum. I mean, I was one of those people once too. When I was starting out, I needed people to give me a chance, and some people did. And work begets work, and good work with good people begets more good work with more good people. Um, I appreciate you looking at the body of work and the number of really, really wonderful, talented cast and crew that I've worked with over the years.
Hmm.
I think the director gets a lot of maybe too much credit and maybe too much blame, because I look at filmmaking as a collaborative activity. Like you can make a movie by yourself, going out with your cell phone, but unless you've got some friends with you, you're filming trees and animals.
Right.
Uh, you know, and the way I was taught, I kind of, I guess I would have been one of those kids creating TikTok videos and videos for YouTube if I were starting out now. But back in the Wayback Machine, when I started out, I just got all my friends together, and my grandparents had a VHS camcorder, and I just enlisted all of my people to make movies with me. I would say, "Hey, wear clothes so you're not afraid to get ripped up and dirty because you're going to be zombies attacking the house." Uh, and then when I went to NYU Film School, it was pretty similar. You were in a crew of four, and you learned that like four people is the foundation of making a movie, and you learned every department. You learned how to do sound, you learned how to do camera, you learned how to load a roll of film, you learned how to edit. uh, and it's continued like that over the years. I think I view it as a collective, perhaps also because when I got out of film school, the world was not waiting to hand me dollars to go make a feature film.
Right.
But what I could find, and what I encourage, emerging filmmakers to do, is find like-minded people. And I found, like I was working for a nonprofit film organization, and my intern said, "Jeremiah, you love movies. Why don't you come join us? We call ourselves the Sunday Club. We make movies every Sunday, and then we have brunch." And I was like, "That sounds pretty good." So I hung out with those guys for several years, and we made a bunch of, videos together. And then over time, we got more ambitious and started, taking it even more seriously. And it's like, okay, let's rent a dolly. Let's hire a professional Steadicam operator. And those early jobs were like a bunch of DIY underground skateboarders meeting up with hardcore industry professionals. And I think the best way to do it is kind of learn from each other. Learn that this is how it's always done is not necessarily the best way, but also, um, like, learn the rule. And I had an art teacher who passed away not too long ago who was really inspirational to me. And she always told me, learn the rules before you break them, and
Right.
film school and working with seasoned pros when I was in my early years as a filmmaker, you learn very quickly what the rules are, and then if you're clever, even somebody like Peter Jackson, if you watch all those Lord of the Rings documentaries, he came from also a do it yourself, very small indie feature world. And you still see him applying some of those tactics when he's doing Lord of the Rings, you
Sure.
know. Uh, so I think as I've grown as a filmmaker and the budgets have gotten larger and the crews have gotten bigger, I think that I still am that little kid in the backyard playing with my friends, or that one guy in a crew of four who's cobbling stuff together, you know. Um, and as for all the people that I've worked with, being a, what did you call it, like a launching pad for them or something.
Yeah.
I think,
I
like
mean,
I said, I think we're a launching pad for each other. Like, it's always good to work with good people.
well, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, when you first start off, you're learning together, but
Mm.
you know how it goes in the business. I mean, sometimes, like the original four people that you worked with, or the ones you met at the Sunday club, how
Mm.
many of them are still out there, making films in comparison? I mean, did they all stay within it, or did some fall away?
Some did and some fell away. So it's not an easy life,
Yeah.
or an easy
No.
lifestyle. It's feast or famine sometimes. Like sometimes you're working all the time and sometimes you're not working at all. Uh, I remember when I went to NYU, like every year I would run into a classmate and they'd be like, I gave up that film nonsense. I'm doing something positive for the world, like being a veterinarian, you know, and I don't fault anybody. I think that indie filmmakers, sometimes they wear, you know, the struggle as a badge of honor, and say like I kept going through the rain and the snow and the sleet and the heat and I didn't complain. But actually, I think that, whatever path you're on is the right one. If you decide I don't want to make movies anymore, I can't blame anyone for that, like, if you feel like you took your shot and got burned so badly by it that you don't
Right.
want to participate anymore, I understand that. I'm sympathetic to it. But I also, there are people, there's an actor named Bill Camp, New York. He was a New York theater guy. Now he acts in a lot of HBO series and stuff like that. But he dropped out of acting straight up. He was just like, hell with this. I'm done. He learned how to become a mechanic. And he did that for several years. And then one day, several years after he quit acting, Tony Kushner, who wrote Angels in America, called him up and was like, "Hey, will you do a reading for me? It's not, it's just a reading, just as a friend." So we did that, and then before you knew it, they were putting up that play at the Public Theater. He was acting again, and he said that the couple of years off where he wasn't acting at all and not even thinking about it were the best thing for him. Best thing for
Yeah.
his mental health. Best thing for his acting. Even he felt like he was a much richer human being leaving the business and then coming back to it later, and finding success. And, I think that if people go that way, that's fine too.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. I think a break is definitely not a bad thing. It allows you to reset, recharge, and I'm with you about that. The grind can be really grind can be really bad. It can really can wear on you. Um, I think the most dangerous thing is for a director though. The most dangerous thing it seems like for a director doing their first time film is for it to hit, not
I've heard
bomb,
this
but
before.
to hit.
Sure.
Yeah,
No, I've heard, I took a lot of inspiration from Bernard Rose, who directed Paper House and Candyman and so many great movies. And he always said the thing that you just said, which is, if you have success, you're going to make your very worst project right after that, because success, where do you go from success? Like in a way, it's like you can almost always just predict that you'll go down somehow, or you'll rest on your laurels, or you'll get lazy. you know, there's a certain part of you that needs to stay hungry. And I think that people who
Yeah.
have had success and then kind of pivot and try to do something that scares them instead of doing the same thing, you know, like that's not a bad thing to do. If you're constantly feeling like you're a beginner, you know, or if you put yourself in situations where you're still learning and forcing yourself into situations where you don't know, where you remain the student, that'll keep you alive. That'll keep you energized as an artist. If success breeds complacency, then that's absolutely dangerous.
I was going to ask you this. I'm going to say hi to the folks in the chat that are coming in. Hey, Larry, welcome to the cat house, the cheetah edition. It says here, had a buddy that wanted to be a filmmaker, got all the way up to being a PA on several shows, but the grind wore on him, and now he's a registered nurse.
That's a noble
Yeah,
profession.
yeah, it's a very noble profession, and we need more of them. As far as being a filmmaker, man, that's I think the secrecy for that is to get into a studio, get a job with a studio, doing something on crew first, just so that they see your face every day, pretty soon, or and better yet, they start calling you for shows. Hey, I need a gaffer. I need someone who knows rigging. Well, let's call Joe, or let's call Suzanne, and then you get that call over and over, and you build up that reputation, and people know you, and then eventually they'll come out and they'll help you. If they see you as a filmmaker, and you show the right desire, and ask the right questions, a lot of times a lot of those folks got help. Um and um but yeah, it is a tough grind, definitely. um Let's see. Dominic, he is a future filmmaker as well. He says, does
Wonderful.
failure teach you lessons that you can learn from that when you implement it on your next film? See, I was doing a big, this is common here. People go like, he's on the box again. But I am a fanatic when it comes down to short films. I think short
Mm.
films are,
Uh-huh.
I think they're the blood. They're the blood of
Yeah.
filmmaking. Um, and in fact, I was going to ask you. I know you graduated from the Tisch School of Arts. Did you learn anything there that you didn't really already know when you walked through the door when you were doing your own short films? Did you go there and sit there and go like, feel like a deja vu, going like, I've already done this. I've already faced this. But you're still in the classroom.
There were technical things that I didn't know at all. Like I was a babe in the woods in some ways when I went to NYU. Now, I'm not advocating that everybody go to film school. In fact, it's so prohibitively expensive, and you can learn everything that I learned at NYU just by going on YouTube now. I would say like take the money. If I were starting out now, I wouldn't go to
Yeah.
NYU. I would take the
Yeah.
money that I would have spent going to NYU and make a feature film, and that would have been my film school. But I did learn stuff in film school that I didn't know before, technical things like the 180-degree rule, which is about eye lines and like which screen direction, somebody is supposed to look, whether it's frame left or frame right. If you're doing complementary, if I'm doing a medium shot of Patrick and a medium shot of Jeremiah, and I want it to look like we're looking at each other, then I will just like frame it up in such a way that the eye lines will match. Stuff like that. I had no clue. But I'm not alone in that. There was the guy who eventually directed Interview with the Vampire, Neil Jordan, who's a phenomenal director, one of my very favorites. He did his first feature and didn't know any of that stuff. His only experience was doing like some documentary stuff for another director named John Borman, but he was a novelist, so he learned by making a feature, which is not a bad way to do it. Whether you sell the feature or not, you have something that's yours. If you go to NYU, you have a degree. And that's nice. It was very cool on the Moartuary Assistant where like, the director of photography, Kevin Duggan, was like, oh, NYU, oh, I'm AFI, but I mean, doesn't matter, like both of us learned almost everything we know by doing it, by going out and making stuff. And to your point about short films, it's a much cheaper way to learn than
Yeah.
climbing the mountain of doing a feature. A short film is like climbing a very small hill. It's like, a short film is almost like telling a joke where you're building up to a peak moment or a punchline, you know? I love it. I would make short films all the time if I could.
I saw that.
They really were, like you said, they were kind of launching pads for other people, like writers that I knew or actors that I knew would often hire me to
Right.
direct their projects, and I loved it. I love doing it. I love reading short stories. I love Edgar Allan Poe and Raymond Carver. Uh, and I would direct short films all the time if it were financially viable. As it stands, I look at short films now as like the things that I do for enjoyment and pleasure when I'm not doing feature films, because feature films often have to concern themselves with the marketplace,
Right.
and have to, there are investors who put money into feature films that want to get their money back in various ways. With the short film, nobody has any expectation of getting their money back.
No.
They're doing it to create art, or to share an experience with other like-minded people. And that's why film festivals are great. It's like, if you're like, I don't know anyone, uh, go make something, even if it's really cheap. Like one of the best things I ever did, and this was well into my short film career, was I took like $600 and I was like, I'm going to spend $200 on a special effect and then like $400 on everything else, like gas, transportation, food, whatever. And we shot for 2 days, and that movie played gazillion film festivals, and it got me my next short film. And actually that short film got me my first feature,
Nice.
and I mean, I'd spent way more money on other short films before then. I was like dropping like 20 grand on short films and stuff. And then that one, I was like, I can either pay my rent or make this movie. And I was like, you know what? I just want to make a movie. I mean, I was like, shit or bust, like, let me go make a film, and that one turned out to really be influential. And for $600, I mean, I thought it was as good as any of the more expensive things that I'd ever done. And certainly audiences dug it. And then, along the way, I met the producers of my first feature, which was a work for hire. Like, that was a straight up like, oh, you made a horror short, looks really amazing. Let's get you and the director of photography and the special effects artist on our feature. We're doing a Killer in the Woods movie. And then it turned out to be a Killer in the Woods movie where we ultimately cast a horror legend named Tom Savini, who did special effects on Friday the 13th and Dawn of the Dead and Creepshow. And he acted in films like From Dusk Till Dawn. And he's in the original Dawn of the Dead. He's the guy he's the biker with the machete, who has a pretty formidable screen presence, So anyway, Tom was the Killer in the Woods in my first feature. But yeah, like a bunch of us got hired off of that $600 short film to do, a very low six figures slasher movie.
That was The Sadist, was it
The
not?
Sadist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I mean. How
yeah.
I mean, you look at a much bigger scale. I mean, you look at
Mm,
what's happening now with with Curry Barker and probably
yeah.
more with King Parson. They
Yeah.
made their shorts on YouTube, and they made their
Amazing.
movies on YouTube, and then finally came out there and saw that and came over and says, we want to hire you to make this movie, based on what you made. Um, so I mean, that's really, oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. Hired for a gun, hired for as a hired gun. Um, what how do directors? I mean, I would like to think that this is one place, this is one part of filmmaking where like when you decide to make a movie, you sit there and say, "This is who I want to get for a movie." Like I watched The Whole a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching the producer's commentary, and they were sitting there going like, the first thing that we knew right away once we got our finished script, and the first thing we knew is that we wanted to get Joe Dante to direct. We want that's there was no if Joe can't do it, then no, it's Joe Dante or bust. Um, isn't that how it's supposed to go? Isn't it so where a producer will go ahead and sit there and say, "This is who I want to get to make my film." What does the term "hired gun" mean? I mean, is that literally how it sounds? Like
Yeah,
they
in
just
some
want to.
ways, I mean, because the first feature I did, I didn't write it, like and the stuff that I'd written, I was trying to get those projects made and just couldn't get them made, you know. I was out there like kind of doing that shopping around thing, and like even, like it took me like after I'd done 5 features, number 6 was the first one that was like a personal project that was like my thing that I'd written and cultivated for years and years and years. And the reason that that one wasn't getting made was because, well, the story behind how that one got made is pretty. It got optioned a couple of times,
What
and they were
what film
trying.
is it? What
It
film
was
is it?
called Slapface, right?
Okay,
So
right. We
Slapface
can
is a
talk about
monster.
that.
It's about a monster and a 12-year-old boy. The little boy becomes friends with this monster, but then things get spin wildly out of control. It's not a Disney movie, like let the bodies hit the floor. Like things spin out of control, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse. You know.
Right, right.
So anyway, I'd written that script. It wasn't even the first. I mean, it wasn't the first script I'd written. It was just like the one I wanted to make the most. And I would pitch it around, and I would talk to producers, and they would give me a little bit of money, and they'd try to get it made. And a year later, it wasn't made. After like 3 options, I put it away. I was like, well, maybe I just can't get feature length scripts that I've written made. I'll just do work for hire. And the writing credits that I had would be like if a script was particularly damaged, I might jump in. The producers might ask me to jump in and like do some writing on it. Uh, anyway, Slapface, the director of photography who shot my first feature, who shot that $600 short, this guy Dominic Savilli. Dominic was like, "Hey, I'll give you $5,000 to go shoot Slapface as a short film. Just take 5 pages of it. We'll shoot that." And
He was
I was like,
paying
"Okay."
you. He was paying
He was just
you.
gonna pay for the movie. I mean, there's
Oh,
there's a twist. There's a plot twist in this story.
okay.
He's like, "I'll give you $5,000." I was like, "That sounds great, Dom." So I write it, and he's like, "Hey, what if we crowdfund? Maybe I don't have to spend $5,000. What if
Right.
yeah?" So we do crowdfund. We get $6,000. And he's like, "Thank God, because I didn't have $5,000, spend on your movie. I just want to make your movie. I just want you to fulfill your dream of like doing this thing you wrote." And we went out and shot with all our friends, like friends that we, after like 10 years in the film business, all the people that we love the most, we just put them in the movie. Or we put them in the crew, and then,
Yeah.
and because people knew this was my passion project, a lot of people were charitable and were like, "Yeah, we'll help you out." Um, and when we were shooting the short, I was like, "This might be it." Like I'm going to give this short everything I've got, because if this feature never gets made, at least I will have done this short version of it.
I have a
Uh,
question real quick.
yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
Were you aware of Cargo at that time?
Cargo. No, what's
Yeah.
that?
Oh, okay. So there was a short film that was filmed in Australia called
Mm,
Cargo, and it was like it's like a 10-minute short.
mm.
And Jeremiah, it is beautiful. It is
I'll look
beautiful,
for it.
and
Is it online?
it is.
Oh, I'll check
It's
it out. I'll go find
it's
it.
an absolutely beautiful film,
Yeah.
and then they remade it as a feature.
Oh, wow. Is
Yeah,
the feature
so
good?
yeah, from what I understand, I personally, they cast Martin Freeman in the role. I would have,
It's about the dad carrying The
Yes.
Child, the zombie
Yeah.
invasion movie. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a
I would
short
have used the
first.
yeah. I would have used the
Oh,
original Dad.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about that. I knew about movies like Sling Blade that were a short that eventually got made into a feature. But I mean, I wasn't even that, I was like, let's just make a short, and throw great passion into it. And when we would screen it at film festivals, it had a really long festival run. It ran for like 3 years, which is like a really long time for a short to
Wow.
play at film festivals. I would always say during Q&As, it's a proof of concept for a feature, just in case anybody out there was listening, And sure enough, along the way, a producer friend of mine named Joe Benedetto was like, hey, there is a producer I know named Mike Manning. And Mike is specifically looking for a dysfunctional family story with supernatural elements in it because Hereditary and The Witch and The Babadook had come out and were so successful, you know. And so I
I
sent
bet you're a
so
I bet you're a Babadook man.
I love The Babadook. I love. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm indebted to The Babadook and
Ah, You was
Hereditary and The
you were
Witch
you were
because those movies, the success of those movies, enabled Slapface to exist. Now, Slapface had been written years before we made it. Um, so it was really just like something that I just wanted to make out of the passion for doing it. But like the marketplace caught up with my script, you know, and Mike optioned it, and I was like, I remember saying at the time, I was like, great, another option. We'll spend a year spinning our wheels, and then nothing will happen, which is most experiences trying to get movies made. Like Tracy Beebe and I can spend, there are loads of projects like that, stuff we've written, stuff we haven't written, like there's loads of projects that just like they try to get it made for a year, it falls down, and you're back to square one. But in the case of Mike Manning, he found investors who believed in the project as much as he did. Uh, and then 8 months after I signed my option, there we are. We're standing on set. There's the monster. There's the little boy. You know, and every day I approached that work with great passion. And while making that movie, I remember saying like, I don't even care. I mean, obviously, I care if it's successful or not. But I was like, you know what? Even if this movie is unsuccessful, just the fact that we're here and making it is enough for me. Like I didn't even believe we would get here to this point making this movie, and just to be doing it felt special. And then the pandemic happened and we edited the movie during the pandemic. And then we played film festivals, and within very short order, this does tie in with Moartuary Assistant, actually. We found our sales agent, which was Epic Pictures Group. They came on after we won an audience award at CineQuest. And then
Was that
when we
Cinequest
got,
in San
then we
Jose?
get, say again?
Was Cinequest in San Jose, San Francisco?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have history
CineQuest,
with that.
there were a couple movies that landed at Shudder that premiered at CineQuest,
I I
but
worked
it's
I worked in San Jose
ah,
when that launched. When Cinequest launched, I worked there.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Back in the
So I
day.
yeah, way back in the day.
Amazing.
My friend Pam Kelly, she used to do all the publicists for
Cool.
publicity for that.
Oh, cool. I'm
Yeah,
indebted to CineQuest also. Like, well, the audience award made a difference. And then the great reviews that came out of Fright Fest helped us land the deal with Shudder. So Epic Pictures Group and Shudder are going to come back into the picture, you know. But I mean, like Epic sold the film to Shudder for English speaking territories and then sold the movie all around the world. So it was a success. It was like my first breakout success, and it felt amazing to have a movie where the investors were really pleased with how it got rolled out into the world. Um, and like I said, work begets work. Like people from years ago called me to direct a horror film for them called The Geechee Witch. And
yeah,
then while I was in post on that, that's when I got a call from Epic Pictures Group, and they were who own the horror company Dread and the video game company Dread XP. and Dread XP distributed the game, The Moartuary Assistant. And they said, Jeremiah, we're interviewing directors for this adaptation of a video game. Are you interested? And my first thought, I tell you no lie, Patrick, was why the hell would I want to do a video game adaptation? Because
you are so speaking. You are so speaking. You and I are so, because I said this for a long time, Jeremiah. I said,
yeah,
I used to sit there and say anthology films for the nightmare for a filmmaker. It's like, Jesus Christ, they're the hardest movies to make.
unless you're
Not
George
anymore.
Romero with Creepshow. There are some great anthology films, actually.
There's some
Tales from the
great. There's
Crypt.
some great. They're just the hardest to make, right?
Yeah, the
But now,
consistency of it is nearly
right?
impossible.
I mean, you watch any anthology, you're always going to get that one stands out, like VHS, the first
Sure.
VHS movie, Amateur Night. That thing just
Yeah,
blows everything off the roof. The rest of the
Patrick,
movie's good.
what's an anthology film that you love, that you're like super passionate about, that you think is good the whole way through, besides Creepshow?
Uh, Actually, I actually really did like I really did like VHS, the first one,
Yeah,
because
VHS, the first one.
I love that first
Good
story so much.
directors.
Good directors.
Good
I
directors.
watched that one. That one's really good. Uh, 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 I mean, I can think of single stories that stand out with me. Like
Yeah.
Nightmare on Dreamscapes from Stephen King. I think I remember. The one that got me was Battleground. Battleground
Oh,
is
that is
nuts.
amazing. Directed by
Yes,
Jim Henson's son, starring
yes,
William Hurt.
yep.
Incredible. And no
Yeah.
dialogue.
No
Incredible.
dialogue. It was like that. It
Incredible.
was like that in the book too. It's the
Yeah.
'cause I read it as a novella, and then
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved it. I thought this is great, and they made it into a anthology film. I'm going like, this is
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh,
But
so good.
it really is good. That's a really good question. I have to think about the 10 really ones that grab at me, um, as far as anthology go. But I think today, even more so than superhero movies,
Mm.
video game movies are the hardest thing to make. Give it up. I just,
Yeah.
it really is the hardest thing to make. You
Yeah.
never get.
I thought it was impossible, because like when Epic told me they wanted to do this, I immediately thought of Super Mario Bros. and Doom and movies like that, which have a lot of problems, right?
Yes.
Super Mario Bros. Like it was like, what are we gonna do? I don't know. Let's make it like Blade Runner, and it quickly has nothing to do with Mario, or Mario Land or any of it. And then Doom, they're trying to shoehorn a plot and characters and character arcs into a game that is essentially a first-person shooter with
Right.
interesting worlds and landscapes, but it's not really a movie.
No.
So I did think about what video gaming movies I loved, and Werewolves Within by Josh Rubin is the high watermark of video game adaptations. It's
Hell yeah!
extraordinary.
I love that movie.
Josh
That movie.
directed the shit out of it. The cast is incredible.
It is.
It's
It is.
scary and funny.
We covered that. See, you and I are
Oh,
going to talk
amazing.
you and I are going to talk some ISC and Shutter, because those are my two jams. Those are my two favorites.
Yeah, I love ISP and Shutter.
Anybody in the chat will tell you that. I mean, they always talk about, everybody's like Criterions or stuff like that, looking for Criterion movies. I'm going like, I don't give a rat's ass about that. I'm looking for ISC movies. I'm looking for ISC
Yeah.
Midnight, and to some
Well, yeah.
extent, Shutter. I still think they misfired though by closing down IFC
Joe
Midnight
Bob.
and
Oh,
gambling,
ISP Midnight.
yeah, and pushing it on Shutter, because Shutter's buyers were never as good as IFC buyers. They never were.
Well,
I would say,
now I think they're one and the same. Like because
yeah, and
I think AMC owns both IFC Films
they
and
did.
Shutter now, so it's all like everything.
It's really weird how you're saying how like when a slap face made money. I have never
Sure.
yet seen a company like IFC or AMC. I have never seen it before, where they would always have their movies be released and everybody would be talking about them, and then they would go to New York and they play IFC Center, maybe play out in LA. And then at the end of
Sure.
you start looking at their box office returns consistently. They're all like $50,000, $100,000. I mean, they never make any money. They never make any box
It's
office. It's
tough.
like,
I mean, it's very tough because like when I saw, well, Slapface didn't have a theatrical release, first of all. And I think like having a theatrical release, it's like you're gonna lose money often when you do that. So when I saw great movies like Late Night with the Devil and Night Patrol, which I really enjoy, I went to see that in the movie theater. It was like me and one other guy seeing Late Night with the Devil, who I didn't know, like some other stranger. At the end of the movie, he's like, "Wasn't that great?" I was like, "Yeah," you know. And then
yeah,
Night Patrol, I was the only person in the theater for that, and that's a shame because that's a crowd pleasing entertainment. Um, but you know, like Epic did a great job with Slapface and got it out into the world, and
yeah,
Shudder and Epic knew that Moartuary Assistant, it was very commercial decision to make that into a movie because the game was a gigantic success.
yes,
And you know, I mean, I played the game and I adored it. I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved Raymond and Rebecca. I loved the world. I thought the mortuary was extraordinary. I'm a big fan of Don Coscarelli's Phantasm, which has a lot of weirdness happening among the dead.
yeah,
Uh, and playing the game, I was like, oh, I see. You know, I see that if you pin this movie on Rebecca Owens, you know, it's her first night at the mortuary, it's her night shift, and strange things start to happen. Will she survive the night? You know, this structure, you know, is very familiar to people who love movies like Halloween and The Evil Dead, because those movies are survive the night movies. Now, what the game had going for it was this inherent strangeness of like you walk into a room and there's a dead body in front of you. That's already mysterious and bizarre. That was the inception of Brian Clark's idea. Brian, who created the game, he was like, "What's scary? If I walk into a room and see a dead body, that's scary. What would I be
yeah,
doing in that room?" And then he eventually got to being a mortician because there's a series of steps that you're doing to embalm the dead, which is a pretty fascinating process that you undergo in the game. Now, the next question becomes, how do you translate
yeah.
some of the things about Brian's game into a film? And
That's
that
the
first
question
one,
for
which is
every.
like the
That's
steps
the
of
que-
embalming the body, sure.
that's the
But I
that's
was
the
like, and
question that
seeing, yeah,
I was gonna say that's the question for every video game person. I mean, even the ones that do Mario, and with Mario, all they did was was put as much flash and dash in front of it because it's aiming for kids. We'll put as much flash and dash in there as if they see mushrooms
right,
and all that. But when you're talking about a movie like that's more based on like Borderlands or Werewolves Within or the Mortuary Assistant, now that audience becomes a lot more picky. They become a lot more, like, what did you put that into the movie? How come that's not in the movie? I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but man, when Borderlands came out, Jesus Christ, that thing got crushed. I mean, and I'm
sure,
like, and I'm sitting here just as a regular film fan. I couldn't understand it, Jeremiah. I just couldn't understand the point of view of that because I didn't play the game. But to me, Borderlands was freaking amazing. And it was
yeah,
Kevin Hart's
totally.
best performance.
Kevin
Kevin
Hart's
Hart
great
was
in it, phenomenal,
he was great in that movie. But
phenomenal.
but all you hear is all these people just slamming on it, just crushing it. And I'm going like, I don't get it. Um, Werewolves Within,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure. But you know, I thought a lot about after we released the film, you know, and the fans were coming out with their knives, you know, I thought a lot about Ryan Johnson and Mark Hamill when they did their Star Wars movie. You know, I was like, wow, you know, they took a swing with the Luke Skywalker character, and
sure,
the audience just wanted to kill him afterwards. You know, like if you know, that was brutal. Like but you know, when adapting the game, I think that Tracy Beebe, who you interviewed and wrote the script, uh, was very smart. You know, because
yeah,
she understood that movies are about characters, and characters do actions, and the actions they do reveal their characters, you know. And
exactly.
how Rebecca Owens enters the situation and how she emerges from the situation, you know, there's a character arc there that, you know, the character grows and develops through the course of her night. And but the bones of that are inherent in the game. Like as you're playing, you learn a lot more about who Rebecca is. She has a different attitude towards Raymond at the end of the story than she does at the
Right.
beginning. Which
Exactly.
is why Tracy very wisely bookended the movie with scenes between Rebecca, who is the apprentice, and Raymond, who is the mentor, but a very untrustworthy mentor. It's like if Obi-Wan Kenobi were an unreliable narrator, that would be
Right.
Raymond,
Right. Like,
you know?
yeah.
So she
Uh,
pinned it on the characters, which I think was very wise, you know? And she did, and, we got her draft, and then Brian, like wrote a few more drafts to like kind of bring it a little closer to the game. But the structure and the underpinnings of the characters, like Tracy honed that in the screenplay while honoring Brian's original intention. Now, the
yes.
next thing
Did a
I
great job.
decided, yeah, really great job, and the next thing I decided was to include Brian, the game creator, as much as possible in creative
Smart.
decisions. Like when we were creating the blueprints for the layout of the mortuary, we would show Brian everything. We would show him photographs of props. He was involved in the casting process. He was involved in choosing me to direct the film. They interviewed like 10 directors, and Brian was like, he's the guy. And I really don't take that for granted, and I really appreciated it. And I pitched it the same way that Tracy did. I was like, I'm going to make it all about Rebecca Owens. I'm going to follow her like a character, the way that Halloween follows Laurie Strode, or that Silence of the Lambs follows Clarice Starling. And the audience is going to be with her for the ride, but we're going to honor the world that Brian built and the characters that Brian built and the monsters that Brian built. And, when we're, making our shot lists and figuring out how we're going to make this thing. Oh, the other trick that I did was we cast Brian. He is dead body number 2 in the movie. So the game creator, it's an Easter egg, is the second dead body. He is a dead body in the game also. But I was like, if we get Brian to play a dead body, he'll be on set with us. Day one of principal photography, he's there and he sees actors playing the characters that he thought up in his head, and he's walking around in 3-dimensional reality, this thing that he dreamed up. And then on day 2 and 3, he's a dead body on a slab, and he called his family. He was originally supposed to stay for 5 days. He was going to stay for the first week of principal photography. He called his family and was like, I can't leave here. This is a once in a lifetime experience. And, I'd love to stay. His family was like, of course, Brian, live your dream. How many times in your life do you get to experience that? So then he came
Exactly.
back, and I kept Brian with me. Like when we were working with the Mimic, played by Mark Steger from Stranger Things, I had Brian standing right next to me. And, like at a certain point I was like, Brian, show Mark how the Mimic moves. Like just do it for him. And then Brian is doing like the movements of the Mimic, and the actor playing the monster is literally mimicking him. And Brian was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Again, like something I dreamed up in my head. Now I'm essentially showing an actor how to move in the same way that, we created my character. I kept Brian involved all through post-production. He saw every edit of the movie, gave notes on it. I interviewed sound designers with Brian, because I felt like sound was an instrumental component to the game. I think it's essential to horror films. And then indeed,
It sort of makes you, if I'm a fan of the movie, right, and
yeah.
I'm hearing what you're telling me now, you're, especially someone who was barking, right? Someone who's barking, all of a sudden you sit them down and you sit there and tell them the story. The only thing I can think of is, how embarrassing it is for them. Here you are barking, and yet here's the creator of the movie has his hands on absolutely everything. The same game you claim to love and everything, and all of a sudden it's like, well, they didn't get it right. Well, why don't you go tell that to the game director, since game maker, since he was here during the
He was
shoot?
there the whole thing, yeah, and
Yeah,
post, and
go tell
indeed
him
at the
that.
premiere of the film, he and I introduced the film. We did interviews together. It's continued. I mean, we're, he and I are friends now, and are talking about
Yeah.
doing other projects together, and whether it be Moartuary Assistant 2 or something else, we just have a real enthusiasm for each other's work, and I
We
really
do got to talk
appreciated
about
that. Yeah,
we do got to talk about the we got to talk about the secret weapon in that movie. We would be terribly remiss if we didn't. but how the hell? What a great job that Willa Ford did.
Willa Holland.
Uh,
Yeah, Willa Holland. Yeah. Amazing.
uh,
She was an amazing actor.
yeah. So talk about how you got her.
Oh, okay. So it was two things. One was that the casting director put her on the list, like Alison Estrin was our casting director. And, we were considering who we wanted to play this part. And, among them was Willa Holland. Now I
Oh,
remembered
wow.
that my slapface producer, Mike Manning, had just done a movie with Willa. They did a crime movie called The Dirty South, starring Willa Holland and Dermot Mulroney. And I'd seen it and I thought that Willa was great in it. And then I called up Mike, who's also a friend, and was like, "Hey, what's Willa like to work with? Is she, what's her process?" And Mike explained how she works, which is in a very interesting technical way that we can get into.
Is she a,
So we offered it to Willa, and she and I talked on Zoom like 3 times. First time for her to see if she liked me or not, and then,
right?
I passed that test. So then she signed up, and then we did 2 more Zooms before shooting just to talk about what we were going to do. And she's the only actor I've ever worked with who wanted to see the shot list all the time. She wanted to see the style guide, and she was like, I don't like to be talked to like an actor, which is very different than Paul Sparks, who played Raymond. I mean, he loves, being talked to like an actor, given playable actions or talking about backstory or whatever. Will is like, I'm allergic to all that stuff. She's like, I will invest fully in the scenes that we're doing. I will give it everything I've got from my soul. But she doesn't want to overthink it. She just wants to know how we're constructing the shots, like wide shot on this lens. And then at this point, when she walks over here, we're going to cut to a 50 millimeter lens or a 35 millimeter lens of her here, and we would walk through it that way. And once I saw that was how she worked, I was like, Willa, I'm going to treat you like a filmmaker. I'm going to include you like you're, because most actors don't want to know that stuff. Paul Sparks wouldn't not give a damn if I told him we were on 35 millimeter lens. He'd be like, no, what's the intention that you want me to play in this beat? Whereas Willa, it's like the way that Mike Manning described her was like, she will do a blocking technically, she will hit all the marks. And then when you're rolling camera, she will be completely vulnerable and completely open and completely in character, and she doesn't want to let the lightning out of the bottle or the juice out of the lemon or whatever you want to describe it as until the cameras are rolling. And once we all understood that, then she was a genuine partner to me and Kevin Duggan, the director of photography. She also was like, tell me where to stand, tell me where to look, tell me what you want me to do, and I will fill it up with meaning. Now, Paul Sparks was completely the opposite. When he came in as Raymond, uh, he was like an architect building a cathedral. He was like, all right, here's the different ways that I could play it. Tell me which one is in the ballpark. And then he wanted to be directed with every take that he did. He wants fresh rejuvenation every time he's doing a new take. So, Willa and Paul couldn't have been more different, but they had enormous respect for each other. Willa was
They
a
had
little
enormous
intimidated by
chemistry.
Paul. Oh,
They
great
had
chemistry.
tremendous. The chemistry was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. She was
I
intimidated by him before meeting him because she was
really.
really impressed by his work from House of Cards and Boardwalk Empire. Paul has an enormous theatrical background. He's a very impressive guy.
Yeah, but
Um,
Will has her. I know we may not sound. On the
no,
surface, but
Willa has
think about
years
it.
of television, the
Yeah,
OC and Arrow.
she
Of
was in the
course, no,
Flash and
she's
the Arrowverse.
no. Willa's been acting since she was 5 years old.
Yeah,
Her next door neighbor was Steven Spielberg. Her stepdad was Brian De Palma. Making movies was in her bloodstream since she was a
yeah,
child. So she's got mighty chops and tremendous experience as an actor. It's undeniable. Like, I loved
yeah.
her in other stuff beyond her TV work. She's really great in a Beverly Cleary adaptation called Tiger Eyes. I mean, when I'm casting somebody, I want to see everything they've got. you know Now, Paul, as it turned out, he and I were at NYU at exactly the same time.
Oh
and
wow.
we were in the same dorm, and he lived 2 floors above me, and we didn't know each other. But we were just talking, and we realized that we're the same age. We're both Gen X. We had the same cultural references. Uh, but just knowing that we went to school, like we must have, to School of the Arts, we must have passed each other in the hallways a million
I'm
times.
sure.
And I think I
Yeah.
know who Paul was back then, but we didn't know each other until making this movie. And now, of course, we're really good friends and meet for coffee all the time. He's in New York like me, but oh yeah, Paul's great. But yeah, like I think also actors kind of take on some aspects of their character when they're playing them, and I think Will's intimidation of Paul was a little bit of her kind of trying to get herself into the headspace of Rebecca and play that level of being intimidated by another person.
I
Which
love the last
yeah,
scene. The
yeah,
last scene is such a great scene. She comes out of the mortuary. She's looking around. She sees that demon looking at her. She gives it the straight out eyeball back, and then you see that little twist in her smile, and then she turns on her heel and walks straight back in, going like, "Okay, let's bring it on."
yeah. She's a very subtle
Yeah,
actor. Yeah,
yeah. I got a couple of questions here, a couple of comments I want to catch up
great.
on.
Yeah, let's do it.
Um, See, Dominic says, I heard that the film investors have expectations of making their money back. My question is, do you try and work really hard and strategically to make the money back, and you don't give up? Yeah, well, okay, so that's actually a pretty good question, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
Um, it used to be like you invest money and then, like if you made it back, great. If you made some of it back, great. But I think it's more and more people are really, before they give you the keys to the car, they want to know, do you know how to drive it?
Oh
As
yeah,
far as,
I've had to have this conversation many times with when I'm interviewing for assignments. They want to know. I mean, they don't ask me that so much anymore because Moartuary Assistant was a pretty big success, and Slapface also was. It's like one thing led to another, and like those two did very well. Um, but before that, like I was constantly being asked, like what are the box office returns of your movies? And kind of the as William Goldman said, nobody knows anything, but there are certain strategies that you can use when you're a producer more than a director. I mean, obviously, if you direct a movie that's financially successful, they're going to let you direct again. Uh, but if you
yeah.
make a movie that's not commercially successful, you better have good reviews, because the critics are not going to pay for your next movie.
Do,
Is the
do, criti-
thing.
do investors know this, Jeremiah? Did they
They're very
understand this?
canny. Oh,
Okay,
pff, yeah,
because
they're very canny. A lot of them are, yeah. Not, I
because
mean, not
Dominic
all of them, but
because
I don't know.
Dominic has another. He has another question. He
Sure.
says here, says, are there reasons why films like Borderland fail financially? I put word of mouth. That's what's hurt. That's what really,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not enough Haley Bennett. But that's just me. Uh, uh,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, in terms of like box office success or failure and stuff like that, it's a slippery slope for sure. I don't know. Like,
that, mo-
I think
that movie
that
was DOA
investors,
before he even hit the theaters, though. That's what killed
yeah,
me. It's like a lot of
but I
these
mean,
movies, they never get a chance.
yeah, and ultimately it's up for the audience to decide if they want it or not. A lot of people will try to, I don't know. One of the reasons that a lot of movies that are like seven figures and up are harder to get made is because they want to attach actors that where they're called name talent. Their name will get the butts in the seats. And it's weird because there's different metrics for it. Like somebody who's successful in America might not be successful internationally. And then there are people that like on that list of like very low seven figures or very high six figures movies. Like, everybody's trying to get Thomas Jane in their movie or Stephen Lang in their movie because those names will help, the thing. But like, not
Especially at
necessarily.
war.
Stephen Lang was in a movie called, oh, I can't remember the name of it. It's directed by a guy named Lucky
Gettysburg.
McKee. Yeah, well, he's been in a lot of movies. Avatar, of course, is the big one, but like he was in a low budget indie called Old Man, and it's a great movie. It was pretty low budget. It's a wonderful script. He's great in it. Lucky McKee's a great director. It wasn't his first feature. He's been around the block. I don't think that movie was commercially successful, even though Stephen Lang was in it. But most of the time you put Stephen Lang in a movie, at least people will be like, oh yeah, the guy from Avatar, and investors kind of prefer that. And that means that a lot of movies at that budget level are chasing the exact same actors. Like everybody's trying to get John Malkovich, or because he'll do an independent film if you pay him enough money to buy a house, right? But there's only so much time in the year, and he
Pay
can't
that
do
man his
everything.
money.
Yeah, so not everybody's going to get John Malkovich.
Pay that man his money so he can buy his house.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, and that's how like loads of independent features don't get made, is because they offer to a couple of people, those people pass, they give up, and they move on. And that's how a lot of projects die. Now, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is like if you're doing, it's like make a really, really low budget horror movie. Like if you keep it under $300,000, you can make your money back. Like the producer of one of the producers on Moartuary, the nuts and bolts producer in Missouri, was Cole Payne, and Cole produces a lot of $250,000 small horror films, and those movies all make their money back. And he's done a lot of prestige movies with like really great actors in them that have played the Tribeca Film Festival. And those movies, it's harder for them to get their money back if they're not a horror movie, because it's like a drama starring a great actor with a great director and a great script, but just doesn't get out there. So like doing a really low budget horror movie, like he works with a director who's done like 10 of those and they've all made money, and Slapface was done on that model. It was like keep it low six figures. The investors did want, like we weren't going to get household names at that price, but like the little boy in it, August Maturo, had been in a movie called The Nun, and The Nun made gazillions of dollars.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, if he's good enough for The Nun, which made gazillions of dollars, he's good enough for us. And he gives a great performance in Slapface. He's wonderful. And then our quote unquote name actor, it was not even, he's like a great character actor named Dan Hedaya, who I loved working with. He's a dream.
Yeah.
Like I knew him from a movie called Blood Simple, which I saw when I was 12 years old, and that was the movie that made me want to go make movies.
I saw him from a little movie called Commando.
That's right. He's the bad guy in Commando. Yeah, he's in hundreds of movies. Throw a dart in any direction, you'll find a movie that Dan Hedaya is in. He was in Cheers.
That's where he broke out at. I think that's where he got real popular at.
Yeah, he's tons of Alien 4, tons of movies. So he plays our sheriff, and Dan was an absolute delight to work with, and critics would say stuff like, oh, and there's great character actor Dan Hedaya. It didn't make any difference in the box office of our movie, but it did. He's just a great actor, who wanted to do our film. But this was true, as long as movies, like when John Carpenter made Assault on Precinct 13, his Dan Hedaya was the guy who played his sheriff, and he literally played the sheriff in that movie, was the guy who played the villain in the John Ford, John Wayne movie, The Searchers. So even John Carpenter was like, well, get like a quasi name to be in Assault on Precinct 13, and then the next level up was Donald Pleasance in Halloween. So like there's a metric that independent films use and have used since the old days and still use now. Now the world is changing, because Curry Barker's movie Obsession didn't have any famous people in it, and Backrooms was based on a YouTube sensation. Now Backrooms is a more successful version of what enabled Moartuary Assistant to exist, which is Moartuary Assistant had built-in audience, that was going to go see it. And boy, did they ever, it's like on Shudder, it was like one of the top 5 biggest openings they ever had in their entire catalog. And one of the top 10, and still is one of the top 10 most viewed I mean, it is one of the top 10 most viewed films in their entire catalog. That number in the
Really?
past, and it's shocking to
Wow.
me. Like
Wow.
I didn't anticipate that, but that's what you get, and that's nothing compared to Backrooms, which made gazillions of dollars. And it made gazillions of dollars because it has gazillions of fans
Okay,
who all
let
tuned
me
in
ask
for
you a
it. Yeah,
question. I'm just
yeah.
Dominic got a question, then I have one for you.
Sure.
See, question. Is William H. Goldman's quote, "Nobody knows anything," taken out of
Yes.
context a lot?
No.
Taken out of,
No.
uh,
Take it out of
yeah,
context. It still makes
yeah,
sense. It's exactly
yeah.
true.
It says,
Live by,
because I look,
put those words on your wall and like study them every day, because that is the reality of the given circumstance when you're making movies. All the stuff that we're talking about is kind of bullshit. Nobody knows anything is the gospel truth.
yeah, there really isn't. There really isn't. I mean, other than maybe for right now, like, I mean, there's, as far as filmmaking goes, it used to be like a crapshoot, but somewhat. There used to be a time where names just open movies. There's certain things that you just that were going to happen. Back in the '70s, early '80s, when you put De Niro's name on top of a movie, it was going to go. If you put Spielberg's name attached to it, it was going to go. And there was a lot more back then that you could do that. Now it's not quite so much. It shrinks down.
It is a different
Which,
world now. Like there
yeah,
used to be a middle class in America, and there used to be a middle class of filmmaking where you had mid-level budgets, where you didn't need Marvel and you didn't need Tom Cruise. If you got Christopher Walken in your movie, you could go make that for $1 million.
right.
And the '90s was filled with those movies. Um, and once the middle class diminished because of the class structure in the world right now, the middle class of filmmaking went away too. It used to be the studio system would put out like 10 mid, like, or whatever, a bunch of medium budget movies. Some would hit and some would miss. But overall, it was profitable. And because of the blockbuster mentality, that all went out the window. Now it's either like mega movies, streaming series, or low budget movies, of which Slapface and Moartuary Assistant are in that category. You know, Now the streaming series bubble busted, and those things don't really exist anymore. So now we're left with big budget movies and little budget movies. And
Yeah.
the thing
Well,
that inspires me and gives me hope that is changing the hierarchy and the model is this YouTube thing, where people like Markiplier build up a YouTube audience and then independently go make Iron Lung. And it's hugely profitable with no studio system, no movie stars, no nothing. Just a guy who cultivated fans. And that doesn't come from nowhere. That was like 10 years of hard work. Like Curry Barker
right.
didn't just come out of nowhere. First of all, his
No.
dad is like a big deal in show business as a script doctor. But second of all, he was a YouTube guy that cultivated his audience.
Oh,
Backrooms
he
guy
he had a he
cultivated
had a
his
silver
audience.
spoon background. He
Huh?
he
Which
had
one?
a Curry had a silver spoon background. I wasn't
A
aware of
little
that.
bit. Yeah, he has a
Oh,
silver spoon background. But like Kane Pixel or Kane Parsons, I don't know what his background is, but I admire, like, people take a crap on him because he's a teenager. I don't think
I just
that's I think it's
I,
amazing, and I think it's valid and
I think it's
valuable. It's like,
amazing for
yeah.
him too. But it's just that I just hated that movie. I didn't think that movie was any good.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
like,
didn't really.
definitely, I mean, if people hate the movie, I mean, people love the movie and hate the movie for the same reason, which is that it's a vibe, you know. Like the thing I don't like about the movie is when they try to shoehorn in like backstory and character underpinnings and stuff like that, because it kind of doesn't ring true. Like, it just kind of feels fake, you know. The movie's at its best when it's coasting along on a vibe, which is kind of what the YouTube channel is, But people dug it. Patrick, in the blink of an eye, they're going to have Backrooms Part 10 in movie
Oh
theaters.
my
It's going to be
God,
like the
yeah,
Saw. It's going to be like the Saw series. Liminal
yeah.
horror is going to be with us, and analog horror is going to be with us.
I,
And studios are already
there's one.
buying all that stuff. Yeah.
The one movie that I saw this year, it came out last year, but the one movie
Mm.
I saw this year that absolutely blew my mind. It's the best movie I've seen this year, um, and that is Good Dog. Good Boy.
Oh,
Oh
Good
my
Boy's
God,
great, but that's very low budget, cool. All right,
that
what a
movie's
cool movie.
phenomenal. That movie
Yeah,
is that just rang all the right bells. I was just sitting there, and I was watching, listening to how they did it, and it
yeah,
took 3
amazing,
years for
right?
them. It's amazing. It's so, and that,
Worth every minute of the 3 years. Like it's they found
oh
all
my
the
God,
right material with that dog.
that was
Um,
just
yeah.
absolutely just a beautiful film, and I was just like, this is just tickles me, and then the ending of
No
it.
studio would ever make that movie though. It's like if he
No,
went to the
no,
studios and was like, let's make this, they would be like, great, can you make the people who own the dog the main characters? Because nobody's gonna want to watch a dog.
that's why I love ISC movies, because they always do this. They always
Yeah,
go out for. I mean, think about how many
that's
movies
right.
that
It
go
takes a
out there.
risk. Takes a
Yeah,
big
they're the
risk
only they're the
and
only ones out there
beautiful.
to do it.
But I mean,
Um,
like, but then you want to, grab the studio people by the lapels, and it's like, have you not, it's like people love animals, people love Jack London stories, it's like people have
right?
loved animals forever. People love Disney films with animals in them. People
Yeah,
love Free Willy,
I don't know what happened to that.
and yeah,
All I
so
know all I know is that all I know is that when I saw Good Boy, I was just blown away with it, and the dog's
yeah, great
face.
script.
Yeah. Um,
And,
you
and the
know,
dog
and
owner
and
made the movie, right? He made the movie about his friend, which was the dog. You feel
yeah.
the heart.
Oh my gosh, that movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many great movies they have put out that nobody else took a chance on. Look at
Yeah.
the Babadook. Look at the Babadook. The
Right
Babadook is
before.
absolutely lovely movie.
A
It is
lovely movie,
haunting
totally.
as hell, and it's
Yeah,
but
Jennifer
it's,
Kent, great director.
and okay. So let me. You mentioned about about directing. Like
Yeah.
getting calls for. Jennifer Kent has done 2 feature films, and before you got here, I was looking at the background. I noticed that you've written for several magazines, for a lot of different
Oh, I
websites,
did. Yeah. Oh, wow.
and
You've done your homework.
I thank you. And I was looking, I was just cruising on one site, and they had all these directors on here, all these great directors, and so
Mm.
I'm sitting there hitting them, A to Z, and I'm hitting them all, and they're all white guys, old white guys.
Yep.
I'm
A
going
lot of
like,
white
okay,
guys.
and I'm going like, okay, so what's the criteria to making the great directors list? Does it have to be, I mean, because I'm thinking to myself, going like, well, people are going to pick Tarantino. He's got what? He's not a great director in any stretch, but I'm using him as an example. Um, but you got Tarantino, who's done 9 movies, and I'm thinking, okay, does that count? Does he count because he's only made 9 movies? I mean, I think Kubrick only made 13 before he passed, and I'm
Yeah,
just
but a lot
thinking,
of people with money are men, and like they love seeing men make movies about other men, and like I think this is it's frankly disgusting, and I wish it weren't so, but like sexism is deeply baked into not just the film industry, but industry, period.
yeah, yeah,
It is very hard for women, non-binary people, queer people, people of color to get their stuff done, which is why people like, let's take Spike Lee and John Singleton and Charles Burnett back in the 80s. They were like, we're going to go do it ourselves. And we're going to get Black people to invest in Black movies, and consequently, like Nike saw Spike Lee's thing, as like, hire him to do Nike commercials. He's brilliant. John Singleton, they hired him to do Fast and the Furious Part 2.
yeah,
Charles Burnett, like, who's a brilliant film director, he did one of my favorite movies called Killer of Sheep. He teaches film school because he's like, I'm too much of it. I mean, he's a genius. He's one of the best filmmakers alive. But he's like, I'm not selling out. I'd rather teach than fucking deal with these asshole executives, And he makes a movie every couple of years, like he made a movie with Danny Glover called To Sleep with Anger back in 1990. That was like his biggest name. No, not true. He did a movie with Ice Cube called The Glass House. So he did a couple of those, but he was like, fuck this. I don't, life's too short to deal with these assholes. But I mean, like Black men have an easier time making a movie than a Black woman, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, by far.
Um, the and those movies are getting made. Like Nia DaCosta did a brilliant job on the Candyman requel, and did her Marvel movie and has been doing it. Did the
The
28
only
years
problem I
later
had
movie
with
and
that,
stuff. Mm.
the only problem I had with that movie was, see, I don't know who did this, I don't know how they did this, but the only reason why you're there on the set making this movie in the fucking first place is because Tony Todd. And what did you do?
Sure.
You gave that guy 5 seconds of screen time. I
Yeah,
was
and
I was blown
originally
away with that.
I heard he wasn't even in it, and then they test screened it, and people were like, "Where the hell is Tony Todd?" So then they paid him a
Yeah.
fortune to show up for 5 seconds, and I'm like,
Well,
"Good on you, Tony Todd, for making that money." But they should have put him in it in the first. I
oh my
love this
God.
Candyman requel, but they should have had Tony Todd because
Uh,
I love. It's one of my favorite movies. Is the Candyman from
yes.
1993? Is it? Bernard
Uh,
Rose directed the hell out of that movie, and it's extraordinary. It's like one of the best horror movies in the 90s, in my
very different.
estimation. Yeah,
Very
Tony
different.
Todd was great in it. May he rest in peace.
And then he did the last, he did the Final Destination Bloodline, and they
Oh,
said,
I
we're
hear
not.
he's phenomenal in that. I haven't seen it yet, but I hear his scene is incredible and haunting and very
He's
beautiful.
it's the reason to watch the movie. It's just for him
Yeah,
saying goodbye, and
yeah,
I was just thinking, man, that's just, I got
mm,
tears. I choked up watching that because you
yeah. I'm
really think
sure,
about it. You think about it, all these great actors like Tony Todd, and one that
sure.
you worked with before, and one of my very all-time favorite actors, and Keith David. Keith
Keith
David's
David,
amazing,
extraordinary. He's
extraordinary.
extraordinary. Yeah. So
I
Keith
did a short
David,
film with him.
yeah,
I was telling people before he got here, Jeremiah, that
yeah.
about short films. I'm going, like, even well-known directors and actors that are, the household names. You go look at their IMDb's, and don't be surprised when all of a sudden you look down there and see that they've done short films.
Oh
Either
yeah,
starred in them, or started them,
yeah.
or directed them. It is a still, and we're going circle here. Um, but the short film really does set the table for everything else. I mean,
That's right.
without the short film, do you think that you would have had the career that you would have had now, or you think it would have taken
No,
much longer?
no, definitely not. No, because the short film led to my first feature, a short film led to my second feature. The second feature led to my third feature, but a short led to my fourth feature. A short led to Slapface. I mean, a lot of, I mean, I've gotten so many features off of my short film resume, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and it's because I fucking love short films. I approach them with great passion and great integrity. And then, a movie like the short I did with Keith David, that's a bittersweet romantic drama. And the casting director,
I was
Carolyn
looking for it to
Sinclair.
watch.
Oh, I'll
I was
send you a
looking.
link. I'll send it
Oh,
to you. But yeah,
uh,
Carolyn Sinclair recommended Keith David. She was like, "What if we go for him for this short?" And I was like, "Keith David will never do this movie." Like I'd offered him Keith like roles in my third feature, my sixth feature, you know, and like the representation was like he won't roll out of bed for less than $40,000 a day or $30,000 a day or whatever it was, and also he passed on those projects. He was like, hell with that. I don't want to stand in front of a map and say you got 48 hours, gentlemen. Anyway, Carolyn was like, no, I think he'll want to do this one because he considers himself a romantic lead and never gets cast in that.
no,
So she offered to him. He did it for like, I mean, our whole, I think our whole movie cost $30,000. Like, I mean, he obviously did it for way less, and he had Favored Nations with Catherine Irby from Law and Order: Criminal Intent, who was his co-star.
right.
But he did it for way less than his usual fee because he wanted to do it. He loved the script. He read it and was like, oh yes, I want to do this, please. And he gave us a free rehearsal, and then gave us 2 days of shooting. And he was absolutely beautiful,
Oh,
very
that.
like, he was, I mean, the crew like looked up to, I mean, like me, when I was a little child, I was watching John Carpenter's The Thing,
Yep,
and he
yep.
was my hero, and he and Kurt Russell were my heroes, so to direct your heroes is a glorious experience. And obviously you don't treat them like your heroes. You treat them like Keith, who's your
Sure.
coworker, I mean, nobody likes to be put on a pedestal, and we're all there to make a good movie. And ultimately all the hierarchical shit goes out the window. It's all like, he needs me to direct and I need him to act, and we do it together. And I loved it, and Paul Sparks from Moartuary got to work with Keith not long after, and he called me up. It's like, hey, I got to work with an old friend of yours, Keith David. Now, Keith is not prone to superlatives. He would never go up to me and say, Jeremiah, you did a great job. He's he's a boomer. He doesn't do sentimental stuff like that. But with Paul, he was like, oh, that film was beautiful. What a beautiful experience. What a beautiful crew. I loved working with Jeremiah. I loved everything. And, to hear it secondhand still made my heart grow bigger. I was like enormously honored that somebody I admire so much really, I mean, he also loved the film. He had in his contract that he could change the edit if he didn't like something, which, I would never want to give an actor, but like he was doing it for such a low rate that I was like, all right, we got to give him something. But then, he saw the film and was like, no notes, looks great. I love it.
Wow.
It's fantastic. And Catherine Irby said the same thing. She saw it and was like, I love it. No notes,
She's underrated.
Yeah.
She's underrated. She always has been.
Phenomenal
Yeah,
actress.
she's a great actress. I loved her in Stir of the Echoes.
She's great in that, opposite Kevin
Yeah,
Bacon. It's a really good film. It's based on a Richard Matheson novel.
yes,
It's a very spooky film. Really great cast. Check it. It's well worth tracking down and checking out.
definitely. I used to watch that thing about once a year. I have a copy of it.
I
I used to like
know.
watch it once a year.
I mean, Kevin Bacon
Dom-
did so many cool movies around that time, like Tremors and all sorts of cool stuff.
yeah, he was really on fire there.
Yeah.
I see. Dominic has more questions. All right.
Fire away.
Because there are people in this film industry that tell me that that this is what it takes to make financially successful films, and if you fail, you can't make another film. Well, that's why you go short films. See, there's some people in this film business tell me, and I question them because I see filmmakers like Robert Rodriguez keep making films despite having flops.
Well, his theory was if you make a bunch of movies all at once, then by the time you've made a flop, you've made two other features, And also,
Right.
Robert Rodriguez took the means of production into his control. He bought a lot of his own gear. He has his own studio.
Yes.
So I think that is the key in today's market is like, if you want to keep doing stuff and you don't want to be beholden to the powers that be, take your money and invest in yourself. But also, like, he invested in gear that would enable them to make feature after feature. But this can be replicated on a small scale model, like the Addams Family, who make a lot of stuff on Shudder. They have all their own equipment. Their VFX artist is their friend, and they make like one film every year. They can make a film and decide that they don't even want to release it and just go make another film because they control the means of production. And then Shudder will buy the film because they're great. They're wonderful artists,
Right.
But like they can just go keep making things. But Curry Barker, when he was doing this YouTube stuff, was the same way. He just created a system where he could make his own stuff. And it's like if Obsession had bombed, which it did not, he would have just gone back to YouTube and like continued doing what he was doing until he got another shot at doing a low, mid to low six-figure movie. If Obsession hadn't hit, I'm sure he would have come back out again with another low-budget film in a couple of years.
So this is another subject. Do you mind staying for a couple more minutes?
Happy to. Yeah, good. I'm enjoying the conversation. So maybe
me
like
too.
another like 15. Yeah.
Sure. So here's my problem. We talked about this earlier, and to me, it's not the first movie. It's always the second movie, and I see a pattern here, where in fact, let's go to the one that really probably is the one case study that everybody looks at when you think about it, and that was be with Josh Trank. He made Chronicle, which swept the world. It was like at the time it was like Obsession or Backrooms. It was massive. Now people look at it and remember that Michael B. Jordan got a start from here too.
Sure.
So here it is, and they turn around and Josh Trank, he got this big movie. He launched some some good actors, and then Hollywood came knocking on the door, and they said, "Hey, we want you to do Fantastic Four." Now here's Josh Trank. It's the second movie. He just got done doing an original movie, superhero movie. Now Hollywood comes up there and says, "Okay, we want you to make a Fantastic Four." Okay, um, and then we're going to do something that you because everybody knows that you helped launch Michael B. Jordan. Well, what we'll do for you is to get Michael B. Jordan to play Johnny Storm.
Right.
Boy, you could just hear the gnashing of teeth. Absolutely, just like every fanboy out there has something to say about it. And it's not the fanboy's fault. I don't blame a single
Right.
person for coming off after it. I completely blame the studio for being that out of touch. Like as soon as you start casting the movie, you have to, and with properties like a Moartuary Assistant or an
Sure.
MCU movie, you have to pay attention. Not being, it's not that you're being dictated to, like you have to do what I say, but you have to be aware of what they're saying to, when you make your movie. And it's like sort of like how Marvel, when they announced that when Robert Downey Jr. was coming back as Doctor Doom.
Oh, right, of course.
Not everybody, nobody was really all happy about that. No, not really. They were not happy about that. They thought, well, we're just going to go ahead and throw him in there, and everybody will just accept it. Not
Yeah,
everybody
it's
does.
tricky how these things go, because back to, I mentioned Neil Jordan earlier. So they did Interview the Vampire, and Tom Cruise is playing the vampire Lestat. And Anne Rice takes a full page out in Variety being like, how dare you? And the fans are all like gnashing their teeth, being like, fucking Tom Cruise is going to fuck up this role. And that movie made gazillions of dollars. And, now everybody looks at the Tom Cruise performance like he was great. I mean, what are you going to do? Just go make the movie that you want to make to the best of your ability.
But what happens
Put
when
your
they
whole heart into it.
yes? But what
And
happens when they handcuff you? See, that's what happened to Josh Trank. He did the
well, all right,
Fantastic
I'll,
Four,
I'll
and they
use an
gave.
example of being handcuffed. So like Danny Boyle does Train Spotting and Shallow Grave, which are incredible films, and then he does The Beach with DiCaprio, and the studio wanted Titanic 2, and DiCaprio wanted Train Spotting 2, and the movie that Danny Boyle wanted to make somehow got fucked up in the meantime. And that movie, it's like could have killed his career. And what he did very wisely, I think, was went back to, like, he went and got like a mini DV camera and did like 2 very low budget movies back to back for the BBC. And then he shot 28 Days Later on mini DV for very cheap, and he said, all right, instead of going up the ladder, because The Beach, it's like, where are you going to go from there? Like, people hate this movie and they
Yeah,
hate you. So then he was like, all right, I'm just going to go back down again and make something down and dirty and small. Brian De
right.
Palma did the same thing. Like Bonfire of the Vanities, mega box office disaster
Oh,
on a grand
remember
scale and a
that?
terrible film.
Yeah,
So then he went and basically made a movie in his backyard with John Lithgow called Raising Cain for very little money,
very
just
little
to kind of
money.
recover and just make a cool, like, he's like, I do thrillers, let me go back to basics, do what I love, and make something that I care about. So he did Raising Cain, which did fine, but it kind of restored his faith and
I think
ability to
he did
make
that after
things.
I think he did that after Blowout.
He did it way after Blowout. He did it
Yeah,
after
Blowout.
Bonfire of the
Yeah,
Vanities. Yeah,
yeah,
Blowout was like, he did that with Lithgow also, which is a
yeah, so I
great
say
film.
Lithgow.
Everybody
He
should watch
didn't.
Blowout.
Uh,
But
oh,
yeah, like after a big box office failure or a critical failure or whatever, my advice would be go back to basics.
yes.
Just go back to the simplicity of like
How about
make.
avoiding the studio system altogether, Jeremiah? What
Well, I
about
mean,
that? I mean,
the
look,
money is
you
so
had your
tempting, right? Like you want to avoid the studio system because like they will eat your soul and spit you out and kill
yes,
you. They don't give a shit about
yes,
you,
no,
and if you can contribute to that monster, they will embrace you. But the minute you don't contribute to it, they will spit you right back out. And if that's
yes,
what you're
yes.
trying to do,
Yes.
if that's your
I was
goal,
just
then you're
I
gonna
was
get fucked
thinking
eventually.
I was thinking about the Zach oh, Larry is here. Let me ask you. Keep asking questions, fellas.
Go
Um,
back and do independent
so
films is the
yeah.
answer. Like if you have a failure, yeah, do small
So
stuff and restore your faith.
Well, yeah, Curry Barker and Kane Parsons, they can easily afford to do that now.
Well, Curry
And
Barker,
so
like
can
him doing Texas Chainsaw, that's a bad idea.
That's
You
a bad
know,
idea.
like,
How about
he shouldn't
Zach
do that.
Krieger doing? How about Zach Krieger doing a Resident Evil? I don't
I
think that's a
reserve
good idea
judgment.
either.
I mean, I think Zach Krieger, like,
Uh,
so far so good, right? You know, Barbarian,
no,
and then
no. Actually,
then
I've heard
Weapons,
nothing. Yeah, I haven't heard anything positive about it. I have
but
not
Resident
heard
Evil.
anybody. I have not heard anybody.
Yeah,
Nobody thinks it.
it's tough, right? You know,
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, what are you going to do? You know, I
go
when, you know,
small.
like,
Go small. Do
yeah,
another. Do
well, yeah,
another first
if
one.
Zach Krieger goes small after Resident Evil, that will be the very wise decision.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you really should.
Yeah,
You shouldn't try.
yeah.
Keep going big. You're gonna get blown up at some point. You know, they're gonna terminate you. Yeah, and
They're
then the
gonna, yeah,
only
the
choice you
fans are
can
gonna
do is go
turn.
small. Yeah,
The fans will definitely turn on you.
yeah,
It's like you had your moment in the sun, and like you already see that with Curry Barker. He's already hedging the bets with this next movie by tying it to his obsession universe. He's sitting there going like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make it or not. So I better tie it into what I already did. Everybody loves, just in
yeah,
case, just in
yeah. I don't
case.
know. I don't know.
Uh, but
I'm gonna see a second feature definitely, and I hope for the best. But like,
oh, me too. Me
when I said
too.
that, I was like, oh, be careful, Curry Barker. That's how they get you.
I I I I I just want Jennifer. I just want Jennifer Kent to make a third one. So Larry says.
She will.
So
She
here's the
will.
question, Jeremiah.
Mhm.
Do you think Obsession did so well because the movie-going audience was starving for something different? Now disclaimer. I really love Obsession and think it's a well-made film. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's funny. I feel.
yeah.
I feel right now. All these IPs already with franchises are already have 9 or 10 movies. Why do I have a feeling going forward that these movies like that, like Scream and Halloween, and why do I have a feeling it's a bad idea to bring those movies out because they're going to get wiped out, especially if they get a couple more big hitters off YouTube like they already have.
They're gonna. Yeah,
They're going
they're
to.
already making
Pe-
them. But no,
People don't want to
Obsession.
see that.
Well, people are. You know, I think Obsession came out. It was like the perfect storm because people are so sick of Marvel movies. I mean, but then Spider-Man is a huge hit, right? So what do I know?
Right.
But like, but people are tired of like just like content. You know, they're sick of content, and Obsession was like an original story that also was speaking to a young audience. You know, like they didn't make Obsession for me and Patrick; they made it for young people. You know,
Right.
and young people loved seeing a movie that felt close to home for them. You know, a generation of young people, you know, watching movies being like, yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like, you know, I feel trapped by X, Y, and Z, and I feel like the system is out to get me, and I feel like, you know, all the stuff about relationships. You know, I think Obsession and Backrooms tapped into contemporary fears, and that contributed to their success. But don't make no mistake, they're going to make Backrooms 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Well,
They're probably
now that
already
8 point, yeah,
they're planning Obsession sequels as we speak. You know, and they're going to run those into the ground too. You know,
yeah,
so they're just going to, you know, they never learn. You know, it's like
no.
we as a civilization tend to repeat our history, whether it's good or bad. You know, and Obsession and Backrooms are the heroes of today, but they're going to be the lamentable IPs of tomorrow. And that
But
said, I really
not everybody makes it
those.
though.
I enjoyed those films.
You look at Chris Stuckman. He crashed and burned with his movie, but that was because he had already set the table for that, I guess.
I have a
Um,
theory about that. You know, like I
yeah,
think, well, here's what happened with that movie. He made a small independent film, and then Neon came on board and was like, let's do reshoots. You know, and like there's a weird thing you get when you're watching Chris's movie where it's like you're seeing like the movie that he made in the first place right next to it. Like then there'll be a shot from the reshoots that is so expensive with state-of-the-art CGI. The entire ending, I think, is different than what people saw at festivals. So I think the studio wrecked Shelby Oaks. You know, I don't think Chris wrecked it. You know, and you know, if I were in Chris Stuckman's shoes, would I say no to Neon coming on, giving me millions of dollars to do reshoots? You know, and yet I think it killed his movie. And that's a shame because I like Chris Stuckman. I like his review channel, and I was rooting for Shelby Oaks. And I think everything that is Chris
Yeah,
Stuckman in that movie is good, and everything
I haven't
that
seen it
is the
yet.
studio is bad.
I
They
haven't
should have
seen it
left
yet.
him alone.
Yeah, I wanted to see it just to see. I want to see Shelley Duvall before else her last role. I know
No,
he got a
that's the
lot of.
Forest Hills. That's a different movie. That's Scott Goldberg's movie,
Oh,
Forest Hills.
that's not the Chris Stuckman movie. I
Oh
thought
no,
he's
you should
in.
interview
Oh,
Scott.
wait a minute. You're right. You're right. Shelley Duvall is. I'm sorry. Camille Sullivan is
Yeah,
in
that's right.
Shelby Oaks. She's.
Yeah, but if you want to talk to the Shelley Duvall guy, I'll give you his email. Scott Goldberg would be
Oh,
happy to come on and talk about Shelley. I mean, that's
I
the
will.
best part of his movie. Shelley Duvall is brilliant in the Forest Hills.
I know
Yeah,
I know I'm no casting director at all,
yeah.
but for your next movie, I would definitely pick up Camille Sullivan.
She's great. She's great.
She is
Very
awesome,
talented.
awesome. Did you see Hunter x Hunter?
No, but I want to. There's a lot of movies I haven't seen. I haven't, I used to see everything, Patrick. When I was a young person, I saw every movie.
But
Now it's
don't
like
Shutter and
I'm
IFC
lucky. I'm
send you?
lucky. What's that?
Doesn't Shutter and IFC send you swag?
No, I don't get swag from those guys. It's like
Wow.
I watch Shutter and I watch IFC, but like I
Uh-huh.
don't, I can't, but also even if they did, I can't keep up with everything that comes out. There's so much. There's so many cool
Well,
independent films that come out, and I can't see them all.
just ask for Concierge Corsage. Ask for Corsage and send that to me. I'm still looking for that one. I still want to see that one so bad.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I just found this at the library.
Oh, outstanding. Great.
Yeah, I just found this one, and I was
Hell
like,
yeah.
yeah. Ah. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna have you come in soon when you have a time. I'm gonna have you come in
Sure.
and be a guest for our IFC show. I don't think I sent you that
I'd be
list.
honored. Sure.
I'm gonna send you that list, and then you can see how we do it. Man, we
That'd be
would love
fun.
to have you as a guest. It'd be
Yeah.
fantastic.
That sounds good. We'll pick up the conversation from where we
Yes.
leave off. That sounds great. I would love to come back.
All right. See, Casey's mentioning. Let's see. So you can go back to basics like when Kevin Smith did with Chasing Amy after his flop with Mallrats. Kevin Smith runs back to that Askew verse every single time he gets his ass kicked. That's a sure thing as much as Wednesday followed Tuesday when
I
he
think
had the
Kevin Smith would
bomb.
be the first to say that he's had his ass kicked a bunch of times, and
Yeah.
he has shown real resilience at like going back and making another thing. Whether you like Kevin Smith's films or not, the guy has been able to keep going back to the well and like making another film. And
It's
like a
funny.
lot of folks from his generation don't. Like Ed Burns, like that guy hasn't made anything in a while.
It's funny because it's funny that I actually heard that Clerks 3 is actually really well done. It's a very
I've never seen it. I've never seen Clerks 1, honestly. I've seen a bunch of Kevin Smith's films, but like, I haven't seen all of it.
I've seen a couple of them. I actually saw Chasing Amy, and I was
Sure.
just like I was underwhelmed.
Sure.
But yeah. But I'm just not that much of a. I'm just I think
Yeah,
he's
I
better.
mean, Kevin Smith's not my thing, but like
Yeah.
people, but he was, he came out at the right time where he was speaking to a Gen X audience that wanted so badly to see their stuff. So, when he hit, with Clerks, it was at a time when people were starving for that kind of movie.
Wow.
And now if you made Clerks today, like there'd be no market for it at all.
No. No. All right. Let's see. I think that'll be it. Casey and Larry are saying hello. Thank you so much, Larry, for that awesome chat. Thanks. I try telling everybody this is going to be a good one. I don't get very many guests on this level. Yeah, I don't get A-listers very often here for any questions with. So I'm very, very tickled and honored that you came out and talked to us.
No, it was. I loved your interview with Tracy, and it was really great talking to you. Look, good conversation is a good conversation, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time. And then Patrick, thanks so much.
Thank you for
the
make
questions.
movie. Thank you for making a great movie. If you haven't seen the Moartuary Assistant, highly recommend that you do. It is a very, very good movie. and one that you'll have in your collection. It did get a physical release on Shutter, so you can pick it up at Shutter.com, or I heard Walmart also carries
Yeah,
it.
they have it on physical media now. So like I grew up in Rhode Island, and my family back there, they feel like I haven't succeeded unless they see my film at Walmart. That's their litmus test for whether I've made it as a filmmaker or not. So yeah, they called me up once they saw that Moartuary Assistant was in Walmart. A couple of my films have made Walmart, and when they do, my family is very proud of me. And when they don't, they think I'm not doing anything. So
That reminds me of
yeah,
that
Moartuary
reminds me of
Assistant at
this.
Walmart.
Do you remember in the movie? Do you ever see that movie Grown Ups?
Which one is that?
With Adam
Is that Paul
Sandler?
Rudd? Adam Sandler?
No,
No, I haven't seen it. No.
It was Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Kevin James. Well, there's a line in
Hmm.
there where Adam Sandler is playing. He plays a Hollywood agent, a high-powered Hollywood agent, and they go back to bury his coach, his basketball coach when
Yeah.
he was a kid, and two of the guys are sitting there and they're going like, well, look at him, Mr. Hollywood. Like he's all he has airs. He goes, he can't be all that. He can't be all that. You think he handles Hulk Hogan? No, can't be all that big. It makes me
Oh
laugh. Uh,
no, it's yeah, it's unless you worked with the Hulkster, what good are you? No,
right.
I always felt sad I didn't get to work with Rowdy. I mean, I loved John Carpenter's They Live and would have loved to have worked with Roddy Piper.
Yes.
I got to work with Keith
Roddy
David, and
Piper
that
was
was
a
good.
good actor. He was a
Oh,
good
he's
actor.
great.
I mean, he has
He
some
was great.
skills.
Yeah,
All
he
right,
was my
boys and
favorite
girls.
heel. Yeah. Thank you guys. Wonderful.
This will be our end of our show for tonight. We got 3 more shows before yours truly is taking a hiatus. I'm going to be taking a hiatus and recharge the battery. But thank you guys all for coming out. I really do appreciate it so much. And hopefully we'll get to see you guys next Monday. We'll have Preston and David from Brimstone Productions will be here. A couple of our Canadian friends, and we'll be talking about boneyard racing. Cannot wait.
Hell yeah.
Speaking of a short film, I'm going to send you that one.
Fantastic.
But that will be next Monday. Otherwise, thank you guys for coming up and supporting us, and we will talk at you guys soon. Yeah, that's all I got to say. But stay right where you're at just for 1 minute. I'm going to say goodnight to the chat here, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.